Things you need to know about string trimmers before you get into your very first string trimmer. That's, gas string trimmers. This is just for gas string trimmers, not so much the brushless battery operated string trimmers. I mean, if you got like an eighth of an acre of yard, yeah, go ahead and get one of those. Those are probably good. But if you're running a gas string trimmer, things you need to know and some of the updated things they've done to string trimmers that you may not have known. For the bigger brand string trimmers, we got two of the big brand string trimmers here. We got a Hag and we got an Echo. We got a Husqvarna and we got an Echo here, guys. Well, they call them Hags, but things you need to know about buying a big name brand string trimmer. I don't have a steel. I used to have an FS 45, which was a curve shaft string trimmer. And hey, string trimmer guys, I know you guys watch a lot of lawn care guys out there. I'm sure they'll tell you that they're probably telling you you should buy this brand, that brand, but pretty much buy what works for you. I'm not going to tell you guys what to buy and what's better than another. I mean, I always run Husqvarna and run Echo. Those are always my two go-tos for residential string trimming. That's what I do for my own yard. And I occasionally we whack a few of my elderly neighbors yards that can't do it anymore, and I do we whack my a couple of his apartment complexes, and we go out and mow it. He mows too, and whenever he's got time I help him, he pays me to do it. So on the weekends, but I've been running commercial lawn equipment for almost 30-40 years. I mean, about 35 years probably, and I've seen a lot of brands come and go. Now right off the bat, the older brands from back in the old days, every old school string trimmer had a aluminum clutch housing. Right here's where your aluminum clutch housing goes, runs down the shaft. There's like a little square gear that runs down your shaft into your gearbox, which runs the string trimmer head. Now the older models had aluminum crankshafts, because you take this off, the front of the face off after you take off the shaft. There's like a little gear in there, like a little thin metal piece that's square that goes into the crankshaft right here. I mean the clutch and the bearings and stuff like that. Now these days they don't have that in these newer models. So what you need to know, and the reason why I'm getting onto the subject here, is because I've seen one too many of these newer models of string trimmers that came into a buddy of mine's shop, and I've been helping him work on a few machines over the years. There used to be a shop up the road up here my buddy used to own, but he had passed away, and I used to help him work on small motors all the time, changing fuel lines, rebuilding, whatever. Most of the time the guys that were bringing them in from had a lot of clutch issues in them, and this is like mid 2007 through 2010. Now they back in 2007 2010, they all came with plastic basically clutch housings right here, and there's a little bearing on the inside that helps move that little gear in the center there down the shaft. And we had a lot of returns from commercial guys of really expensive string trimmers like Steels and Echoes and Husqvarnas. They were being brought in because the clutches were burning out in them. And this is the reason why, just for me personally, I like running a weed guard, because what it is it's timed with the head, with the shaft and the clutch. When they build these, they are timed with the weed guards on them, so they cut the line to a certain size, and it's meant to run the line at a certain size. So you see a lot of the lawn guys, they don't have the guards on them because they like to use them without the guards so they can get the heads in confined spaces. But I'm here to tell you guys, I would not do that. If you guys want, because the shop that I used to work for up the road here, they had that problem with a lot of these commercial guys taking off their guards. I know it's a whole big debate in the lawn care industry, or YouTube lawn care guy, monologue vlogs, that should you run your guard or shouldn't you run your guard. If you want your machine to last a lot longer, I would run the guard, because the guards are timed with the shaft and the clutch. So if you're not running a guard, it's going to ruin the clutch, and fixing a clutch on a string trimmer is going to cost more than buying a new string trimmer. So if you're running without the guard and your clutch burns out, it's just cheaper to buy a new string trimmer than fixing the clutch. But by the time you get into labor parts, you're talking around 260 bucks, maybe less, like 250 bucks. So you could buy a whole brand new string trimmer for the prices you're going to be for the parts and labor to fix one of these, because you're not running the guard. And plus that too, a lot of the newer steels, this is not with the Husqvarnas now. Husqvarnas still have the greasing nut right here. As you guys can see here, you could take that little greasing nut off either with a Torx bit or a little wrench to take that nut off and get a squeeze tube of grease in there to grease down that head and that gear. You can't do that with these anymore with Echo and steel. They took that away. You literally have to take the whole gear head off of these things and then try to force grease down the gear head, and that's causing a lot of issues with these Echoes and steel. And I wouldn't recommend an Echo and a steel. I mean, they're great units unless you can get the combi versions of Echo and steel. Get the combi versions of the Echo and steel, they still have the greasing nut on the head, and you could take that little nut off and grease the heads down. That way it doesn't burn up the gears in here. Now it's different on a curve shaft. Should you run a guard or not run a guard on a curve shaft? I would still keep the guard on there, because even a curve shaft has a clutch. You can't grease it like you can one of these straight shafts right here with the greasing nut on it. That's why I say get the newer versions of the Husqvarnas. You can still grease the heads on them, even if it's a residential model. Even their more professional models, you can still grease the head on them, but you cannot grease the head on the Echoes, the Shindaiwas, and the steels. And there's a lot of people have been having issues with burning out the gear heads on these after 2 seasons because they can't grease the heads, and that is a big issue with Echoes and steels, and you know, a few other brands that are running the straight shaft. Now like I said, with the combi versions, you don't have to worry about that with the Echoes and the steels. If you're going to get a steel or an Echo, make sure you guys get the combi version, and make sure it has the greasing nut on the head so you can grease the head down. Because these heads here, I've had to grease this one this year I mean, I had to pull the whole head off and try to force grease down in the hole. It's a pain in the butt. But you know, these are some of the things you need to know if you're going to buy a string trimmer. By not running the guard on it, you're going to burn up your clutch. A lot of people don't know that, you know, especially if you're a residential guy. It might take longer for you to figure out that your clutch is burnt in your string trimmer because you ain't ran the guard. Most guys that are running lawn crews, they could usually pick up on that within like a year or two before it burns out on their newer string trimmers, because the clutch housings in these are made out of plastic instead of aluminum. I mean, you got to pay a pretty penny for a professional model that does have a aluminum clutch housing. But I've seen a lot of the steel ones, the really expensive FS like 113s and stuff like that, they still are carrying the plastic clutch housings. If you're running it without the weed guard and it's not timed with the clutch, because it's putting out too much line, and that head's not timed to deal with that much line being put out all at once, it'll eventually burn up your clutch. That's why I always say, guys, if you're going to run one of these things, just my opinion personally, keep the weed guards on your string trimmers, guys, because if you don't, you're going to burn your clutches out really quick. And if you're a residential guy, you won't notice that until 4 years down the road, and your string trimmers burn out. And a lot of that that issue you're going to get is when you're trying to pin the machine because you didn't run Well, there's a lot of issues, but you'll notice it won't run as good with the clutch being burnt out, because these are designed with the wheat guards in mind. Now, there's another tip, guys. If you're running a more fancy machine like a Husqvarna, a Steel, or an Echo, make sure you guys run the proper speed feed heads on your string trimmers. Like if you're running an Echo Shindaiwa, you could run the speed feed heads, or the Echo-matic heads work really well with those units. I know I might get some crap for saying this, but the Echo speed feed heads suck on Husqvarnas. I'm going to say it. I'm sorry. I think the Husqvarna Rapid Replace Head, which is this one, runs really good with any Husqvarna flush. You don't have that stupid little gap in between, and you should be always running your guards, guys. I don't care if some lawn care guy says you should run without a guard and put an Echo speed feed head on here. Every time I put an Echo speed feed head on a Husqvarna, it doesn't run right. Like when you throttle it, it feels like it's sucking it into a fence. You have to go half throttle. These machines are meant to go full bore at full throttle. You never really want to use these 2-cycle string trimmers at a low RPM, because then you'll get a lot of carbon buildup in your spark arrestor area of your mufflers, and you'll start getting bogginess down in your string trimmers. These things are meant to go full bore and not at a slow speed. You know what I'm saying? So by having whatever brand that you got and make that you got, make sure you use their version of the speed feed head on their machines. The Husqvarna Rapid Replace heads are awesome. They do cut the line off evenly. They run flush with any Husqvarna. I think the 525 is the only one. This Rapid Replace head won't work unless you put a spacer in it, and I don't recommend that for that one. But pretty much any of the 129Ls, the 128LDs, any of those versions of Husqvarnas, they'll fit flush, or the 129L, they'll fit flush with the Rapid Replace heads perfectly. They cut off the line with the guard perfectly. I've used this one already a couple times already. They're just a little bit heavier than the T25 heads. If I was to recommend you guys, if you're going to run a Husqvarna, run a Rapid Replace head or the original T25 head. I know the T25 head sucks to some people. It's a good head. It's a good head. It may not be as reliable and long-lasting as the Rapid Replace head. I still got a Rapid Replace head on my Tanaka, and I put one on my 129L I still have, which is a bigger model. And the same thing with the Steels as well. The Steels do have a quick feed head. If you're going to run a quick feed head on a Steel, guys, run the Steel version. Because I'm here to tell you guys, when you're running the guards with these, you need to run the guards with your string trimmers. I cannot be more adamant about running the guard with your string trimmers. If you don't want to burn the clutch up in your string trimmer, it is a well-known fact that these are timed with their version of string trimmer heads. So stick with the same brand of string trimmer heads out there that go with your brand. Because if you start using some aftermarket brand, or you're trying to put a speed feed head on a Husqvarna, it won't cut the line off with the guard, and you want to run the guard, guys. I can't be more adamant about it, because I had a couple craftsmen over the years I didn't run a guard with, and it burnt the clutch out in it. And yeah, so, and plus that too, the shop I used to work for, a lot of these really expensive string trimmers were being brought back in to have their clutches fixed. Most of the time we would tell the guys, just go buy a new string trimmer, man, because it's going to cost more to fix a clutch than buying them a new string trimmer. So for them to buy a new string trimmer, so there's that. So there's some of the things you guys need to know if you're going to run even a big box store string trimmer like a Craftsman, a Boland's curve shaft. Keep the guards on it, guys. I know some of the OEM heads on some of the Troy-bilts suck, and they have that little screw knob on the bottom, and you got to pull all the line out. I wouldn't bother with those heads. If you're gonna buy like a Troy-bilt or a Craftsman that have those weird like OEM screw knob heads, I would go and buy a Husqvarna head, like one of those combi heads, and make sure you get the more expensive Craftsman or the Troy-bilt that has like the screw-on combi, not the square combi, because those square combis can only take certain brands. But you could get a Husqvarna shaft, or you can get an Echo shaft to put on those Craftsman and Troy-bilt models of combis. I would go with that version and get rid of the old OEM heads, you know, shafts with those, and go with like a Echo, or buy a Husqvarna shaft for those OEM versions, because they do work on those. And I used to have a Craftsman, I think 2-stroke string trimmer. I think it was 25cc, and I put a Husqvarna shaft on the combi, and it worked great. I still got that one actually. It's in my garage, and run good fuel and good oil mixture with your 2-cycle 5-0-1 string trimmer, and it'll last you for years and years and years down the road, guys. I hope these tips help you guys out when you buy a string trimmer, what you should do, and you know, the do's and the don'ts that I've had to learn over the years working on them and using them professionally and residentially over the years about string trimmers. Should you run the guard or shouldn't you run the guard? Yeah, I would run the guard years on end. Run the guards on them, man. Make sure you use the brand type of heads. I know I did a video putting an Echo Speedfeed head on this one, but I don't recommend the Echo Speedfeed heads on any of the Husqvarna brands. If you're going to get a Husqvarna brand string trimmer head, get the T25 or the Rapid Replace head for it. It always works great. It's a little bit heavier than the T25, but it's good to go with that. If you're going to get a steel version of a Speedfeed head, get it for the steel, you know, steel on steel head, Husqvarna head on Husqvarna head, or, you know, Rapid Replace head on the Husqvarna, or the Echo Speedfeed head 400, 450, 500 on Shindaiwas and Echoes. Shindaiwa make a very similar head to the Echo Speedfeed head. So, you know, if you're going to put a Speedfeed head on one of these things, which brand of Speedfeed head that goes to your unit, and use that on that model, and it'll work perfectly every single time. It's still timed with the clutch and the shaft, and you won't have to worry about burning out your clutch. It'll cut the line off with your guard and you burn them out, because these are not aluminum, they're plastic clutch housings, and then sometimes they melt because you're not running a guard and you're running too long of line on your string trimmer, guys. It's not timed to run that much line. It's meant to be cut off at the guard. If you don't know this already, you should know this. And if you see a guy that's promoting and telling you not to run the weed guard on a string trimmer, I would run it if you want your string trimmer to last. Your string trimmer to last a few years longer than burning up your clutch on them. And you know, I would tell you straight up to buy a new string trimmer if your clutch burns out. It's cheaper just to buy a new one. I hope you guys like this video on what you should know before you buy a string trimmer and how you should run your string trimmer. Some tips and my opinions on what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Honestly, don't take it from me, guys. If you want to run your string trimmer with no guard, go ahead. But just know eventually your string trimmer is going to burn up the clutch, and you're going to be out of a very expensive unit. You're going to be spending more money on another string trimmer. It's my own opinion about it. Hope you guys like this video. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe. This has been your old pal Hondo from Hillbilly Tactical. Hondo